Yeah, so it's finding that balance as well between autonomy and dependency.
Yes.
Right? Because it can be so easy if you're in a relationship and you've been gaslighted maybe the entire relationship. So you didn't even notice, right? But then it gets to a point where you start asking yourself, like, can I leave? Or have I become so dependent on this person that it's actually really difficult to leave? Because a lot of the times that can be the outcome of gaslighting if it happens repeatedly over months or sometimes even years. Like, the more you're entrenched in it, the harder it is to leave. If you don't know what gaslighting is, you don't realize that it's happening, right? So obviously for me as a mental health therapist, I've seen it so much and I'm educated on it, but I've noticed people try to gaslight me as well, right? Like even, when I was at a restaurant.
On Stories of Self, we go on journeys into the lives of ourselves and others. We see how stories connect, how they diverge, and how we can create our worlds and solve our problems. This is the real-life remix of storytelling, which is so often stranger than fiction. So come and sit around the fire, chill by the ocean, or get a coffee with me, as I delve into the stories of self that make, break, and remake us. Some stories are dramatic, some are serene, some will magically mirror you, and some will be delightfully different. I'm your host, Katie Reeve Arnold, and this is Stories of Self. Welcome to Stories of Self. I'm Katie, and I'm here today with my guest, Kate Melendi. Kate is a licensed mental health therapist and an author, and she's got an exciting new project coming up with me called Soul Therapy that we'll talk to you about later. Welcome, Kate. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Katie. I'm so excited to be here and to be working with you again.
Yeah, it's great. I love working with you. So today I thought we'd talk a bit about gaslighting. I think gaslighting is something that a lot of us find we have in our lives, and we can find ourselves really pulled down by if we don't notice it, if we don't see it there, and so recognize that we need to change something or move away from it. If we rather get kind of caught in its spider's web without even noticing that we're somebody's fly in that web that they've created.
It's so true. And I feel like it happens so often in today's world that a lot of the time we don't even realize that we're being gaslit.
Yeah, definitely. So gaslighting comes from, the term actually comes from, it's aligned with a movie, old movie. And the idea was that the person was actually changing small things about the house. And they were changing small things all the time, every day. And that was to try and drive the person that they were living with mad. They were asserting that they weren't changing anything, and like making the light bulb a little bit dimmer, or moving chairs and moving things around, and then asserting that they hadn't done it in order to make that person feel like question their own mind, basically question their own sanity. Because the world around them was changing, but the person that was changing it was denying they were changing it at all.
Oh my gosh, that's like the epitome of gaslighting.
Exactly.
That's like the worst. Yeah,
so that's why we call it gaslighting. That's where the term came from.
Oh my gosh.
From the movie, yeah.
Okay, I did not know that. That's really interesting. But that is a great example of gaslighting. And especially in relationships, like that can happen as well, but it's not so kind of covert. But I do see this happening a lot in my work with clients as well. And sometimes they'll present a scenario to me, and they're just telling me, and to me it's like gaslighting, and it's just like a red light flashing, and they don't even realize that they're being gaslit by their partner.
See, this is the thing. I think a lot of the time people just don't know that this is going on for them. I don't think it's necessarily in every single relationship, but I do think that sometimes what happens is that people, in order to make their own life easier, they manipulate the truth. And we can question over whether they know they're doing that, whether they're doing it intentionally, or whether they're stepping into a reality they wish was real, you know?
Yes.
That, no, you never told me to
Right.
take the trash out. You never told me to take the rubbish out.
Yeah.
They're saying it because they wish it were real, because they know they haven't done it, you know? And so when the partner turns around and says you didn't take the rubbish out, they say like, oh, well, but you never told me to, you know? Is that an easy way to get off the hook? Do they know? Is that the reality they wish were real? Either way, if it doesn't align with the person who said, can you take the trash out before you go to work, or can you on your way out, can you take this?
Yeah.
If they don't do it, then they're told, oh yes, you never told me that, so I would have done it if you told me. That's again making them question the reality. What's real? Questioning. Gaslighting is anything that makes you question your own reality.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're in a relationship with someone and you finally, or you feel like you're always questioning your own reality, or you're saying like, okay, am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? Like, is it me? And you start asking yourself those questions. Sometimes they can be good signs that you may potentially be with someone who is gaslighting you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say my top tip for anybody who thinks that they're kind of questioning their own reality, questioning, did I say that? Didn't I say that? This might sound a little bit extreme, but I think like just keeping a little note of what you've said, like a tiny little notebook, a little note on your phone, a little, just something to say, you know, on Tuesday morning, I did ask them to take the trash out. I did ask them to take the rubbish out. And this is not the case. It's not the case that if they turn around and say, oh, no, you didn't tell me, that you immediately wave the phone or the little book in their face and go like, I did, you know, kind of thing. This is a case of getting, you know, maybe more compassionate and kind with yourself, knowing you can see that I actually did ask you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to question your reality anymore.
Yes.
But with them, just being like, really, you really don't remember me saying that. And recognizing, is this something that comes up occasionally? Is this something that comes up on repeat?
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, is this intentional by this person or is this not? So I think remaining on that borderline where until you know that they're intentionally trying to gaslight you, you're a bit open to the fact that, are they registering what you're saying? And if not, you could turn around and say, okay, you're going to take the trash out before you go. And they say, yes. And what are you going to do? I'm going to take the trash. So they're actually repeating what you're saying. I'm going to take the trash out before I go. You know, because it's reinforcing it in your mind. Maybe they are literally. I mean, have you ever done this? I did have done this so many times. When someone's talking to you and you're trying to do 3 other things in your mind. So and you're making a cup of tea or something. So you go no, and then when they say, so what do you think? You're like, oh, that's difficult because I wasn't necessarily actively listening.
Exactly.
So we're not communicating well.
It's a good point, right? To really assess, is this being done intentionally, right? And also coming up with solutions, right? So it's, you know, pointing it out, like, I noticed, like, I did ask you this and you didn't do it. How can we come up with a plan so this doesn't happen again? Is there anything you need from me? What can you do? Is this going to involve you setting a timer? Is this going to involve me writing a note on the fridge for you? Is this going to involve me leaving a note on the door so before you walk out the door, you remember and you go and take the trash out, right? So trying to assess intention and come up with a plan and a solution. And that's going to be where you'll find out, is this intentional, or is this just maybe they're really busy with work right now? Maybe they just have a lot on their mind. Maybe this is just a phase, right? So also asking, is this something new that is coming up, or is this something that's been happening throughout the entire relationship? Is this a pattern, or is this something new?
Exactly. And that's where the little book can help. If you're keeping note, or the phone app can help, you know. But we don't want to be creating drama where there isn't any, you know. We want to be diffusing it if it's not true drama. However, if they are doing this intentionally, this is quite a dark spiral because people who are insecure in themselves, who do not have security within themselves or within their place in the relationship or their place in life, they do tend to undercut or limit their partners in order that their partners, in their eyes, be less likely to leave them, feel less capable to move on or away from them, feel more that they need them. This is also one of the reasons why it's very, very common in relationships to end up with the state where one person does all the driving and the other person doesn't drive necessarily, or can drive but just moves away from doing it. And this can just be habit, but it can also be very much due to the fact that the person who normally does the driving just likes holding that role. They like holding that needed role, and the person who gets driven around kind of succumbs to that and enjoys actually having that provided to them. But at the same time, they're losing a little bit of their independence. They're losing a little bit of their capacity to just jump in the car and drive. They'd have to think twice about it maybe if they haven't driven really for 5, 10, 15 years in a long relationship.
Yeah, so it's finding that balance as well between autonomy and dependency.
Yes.
Right? Because it can be so easy if you're in a relationship and you've been gaslighted maybe the entire relationship, so you didn't even notice, right? But then it gets to a point where you start asking yourself, like, can I leave? Or have I become so dependent on this person that it's actually really difficult to leave? Because a lot of the times that can be the outcome of gaslighting if it happens repeatedly over months or sometimes even years. Like, the more you're entrenched in it, the harder it is to leave.
Yes, definitely. So you end up, that's the the entire goal of gaslighting is to reduce that capacity and to secure that person. So it can be very, very difficult then to turn around and see an ability to leave, see an ability to move on. And of course it undercuts the rest of your world, how you step out into the rest of your world. And it's not just partners also that gaslight. So I've noticed this happening more and more generally in society. And it's a bit scary then for people, because you're stepping out of a home maybe where you're either not suffering gaslighting, so you're not used to it, or you are suffering gaslighting, so you're already undercut in your stability within yourself and your self-trust of what is true. And so then stepping out into the world where more and more people seem to be gaslighting others in order to just smooth their own path. Have you noticed this in your life?
Yeah, and if you don't know what gaslighting is, you don't realize that it's happening, right? So obviously for me as a mental health therapist, I've seen it so much and I'm educated on it, but I've noticed people try to gaslight me as well, right? Like even, when I was at a restaurant one time and the server told me, no, I told you this table was reserved, right? And I remember very clearly he told me the other table was reserved, and he was trying to gaslight me into saying, no, like I told you this. Hence, he was trying to question the reality and change the reality of what actually happened, right? And this was a server in a restaurant. So it made me question, like, does he even realize that he's gaslighting, or has this become, like, so entrenched in our culture? So that societal. People are just doing it without even realizing that they're gaslighting.
He's making his own life easier by trying to change your reality. And that is gaslighting. But this then has become quite diverse within and diffuse within our society. So many people, you see this from so many aspects. Sure, I had it just the other day. I went into a place and I'd booked months in advance for a table in a restaurant. And they turned around and said to me, oh, we have to give you this cruddy table up a corner because you were the last person to book, and we were fully booked tonight, and your booking was the last, so and it's not true. I was like, well, no, I booked over 2.5 months ago and the page was blank when you put my booking in.
My gosh.
So therefore, that's not true, is it? And sometimes I think it can actually help to face people, not necessarily partners. If you're having this at home, it can also, it can escalate. But facing people out with the clear truth of the matter.
Yeah, because if we don't, we're enabling it. Because, like, for me, the server at the restaurant, for him to say that to me, clearly it's worked for him before. So it's become reinforced. If it didn't work, he wouldn't use it, right? So I think it's everybody's responsibility to question gaslighting when it comes up, especially out in the general public with people. Because if we don't, we're enabling it and we're reinforcing it, and it's just becoming more and more entrenched in our culture and society, and it's not great.
Yeah, and entrenching this kind of gaslighting in society means that we're left with a society and left with personal lives, our own realities, where we're not quite sure what is true, and that we feel like we're standing on shifting sand rather than a firm foundation, because it's being changed all around us all the time by different people. And it gets to the point where we're doing this to each other. So for me, it's really reinforced the fact that even if it would be easier for me not to own the truth of my situation, own the truth of my mistake, it's actually much, much better to own the truth of my mistake. So for example, as that person, if I double book clients or something, it's much, much better from, instead of saying, oh no, you weren't booked for that time, why would I mean, it sounds terrible, I wouldn't do that to anyone anyway, but it's a much better thing to actually own, oh, I'm so sorry, I've double booked, is it possible for you to shift? And if it's awkward, you kind of start to open up new slots or new elements for them. You maybe even give a little something, kind of say, oh, you know, I'm happy to kind of knock 5% off because I'm having to move you, or this kind of thing. I'm really sorry about that. I hope it doesn't cause too much issue. But actually owning that. So if that server had come up to you in the restaurant and had said, I know I told you that table is reserved, but I actually got it wrong. And it was this table that was reserved and it's that one that's free. Can I move you to it? Would you have had any problem with that?
No, like we would have moved. It's the idea that, you know, someone not taking responsibility is just not acceptable, right? And it can be power in owning your responsibility, taking accountability, right, for what you did. It's okay to say, you know, I messed up. Like, we're humans, we make mistakes. Like, it's okay, right? And it is power in recognizing when you mess up and taking accountability for it instead of trying to hide behind it and then turn it around on the other person. It's so manipulative.
Totally. And if we don't own it, if we don't own our error or own our mistake, or own what's going wrong that had its root with us, then we don't learn the lesson. And if we don't learn the lesson, we defer the lesson. So if we don't learn the lesson then by owning it, we defer the lesson to the future. And what that means is we're going to come up against the same issue, the same problem again, again and again. Our own creation. We're going to create the same problem, the same drama, the same issue for ourselves. And this, I think, is where gaslighting in a romantic relationship or in a family situation can actually get really, really difficult. Because gaslighting is deferring that ownership of any issue or ownership of our own responsibility to support the relationship in the way that people want to have us around. They don't need us there. It's not dependency. It's love and wanting, right? And so for whatever reason, if someone feels not worthy of that, or they're finding difficulty in that, but they don't want to realize it, then they're not learning the lesson, and so they're having to keep people in that lower state in their own minds, and so then it will keep coming.
Right? And it's damaging the relationship on top of that, right? If you learn to take responsibility and alchemize, then it's going to improve the relationship. If you don't, you're just going to keep repeating it, or worse, your partner's just going to leave you. They're going to get fed up with it and they're going to leave you. And then you're going to end up in another relationship where you do the same thing. And if that partner has any level of self-awareness, they're going to leave you too.
So essentially, whether you're the gaslighter or the person being gaslit, if you don't confront this behavior in a productive way, not in an argumentative way, but in a real forward-thinking way, solution-focused way, you're going to go on to find that again and again in future relationships or future incidences in your life, because you're not going through that lesson, you're not learning that lesson. So what would you say with regards to if somebody is in a relationship finding they're suffering gaslighting, what would you say as an advice for what they should maybe do?
Well, first I would tell them to seek clarity and make sure that, you know, ask yourself questions like, is this something new that just started? Right? Because if it's something new, maybe that person is going through a stressful time at work. Maybe they're going through, you know, a stressful family experience, and they're just really forgetful. They're not intentionally trying to manipulate you. You know, intention is so important, right? Or it's asking yourself, is this something that's always been happening and I'm just becoming aware of it now, right? And if you're not sure, then address it with that person in a non-confrontational way. You know, like, I noticed we had this conversation, but then you didn't take out the garbage. What's the solution? Should I leave you a note? Should we come up with a plan? What can you do to remember? Do you need to set a timer on your phone, right? So if you do all this and that person is still gaslighting, well, then it's asking yourself, do I want to still be in a relationship with someone who is manipulating me?
You know? Very true. And the thing is that noticing that if you're in a relationship with somebody who's manipulating you, whether this is something they're intending or not, what they're expressing is that they want to use you for a certain element in their life. They want you to fit a certain role or function in their life. And that's more important to them than giving you the respect of the truth.
Right.
And so in that, we have to question, really, is this true unconditional love? Or is this conditional love? Where they are manipulating you and they have conditions by which you're existing in each other's lives.
Exactly.
And is that the kind of love that you want to be providing for yourself?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And asking yourself, why am I accepting this? Right?
Yes.
Why am I accepting conditional love? Why am I accepting gaslighting behavior?
Yeah, it's
what
very
does this
important.
say about what I need to heal within myself? Whether it's previous trauma, whether it's childhood trauma, it's some reason that you're in that relationship, and it's some reason that you're continuing to allow it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for coming and chatting today, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been awesome. I'm so excited to bring soul therapy with you to the whole world. We've got a fantastic free 12-episode series for everyone coming up, where we've put together all the elements of life that we feel once you're cohesively moving through them, and once you've expressed yourself within them and they're working well for you. That's a life well lived, and that's a life fulfilled, and that's a life lived with joy and happiness. So we're super excited to bring that to you soon. And watch the space, and it will be launching very, very, very soon.
Stay tuned.
We are all telling our stories, and we are all telling ourselves stories about it all. Are you brave enough to walk with me into hearing, considering, and understanding the stories we tell? Join me next time, where we'll be considering more stories and illusions and stepping into creating the freedom we desire. Every moment, we are who we are choosing to be. You choose. Choose you, because your story matters.